Hey guys, it's Richardlizhu reporting back from Silicon Valley, California. In today's video, we have the world's cheapest and highest mileage McLaren 570S Spider. I bought this a couple months ago from McLaren SF for $135,000. It has 43,000 miles on the odometer. Stay tuned and subscribe to this channel for a full breakdown and review in a future video. Let's get started. So there are a lot of McLaren reviews already on YouTube. I'm not going to talk about the standard stuff, like how the front doesn't have a latch, or how it can very easily fit this DJI Phantom drone. Instead, we're going to take a look at the unique features of the highest mileage and cheapest McLaren 570S Spider on the market. If you look over here, you'll see a rock chip, but fortunately, it's not on the paint itself, but just on the PPF. The owner before me spent probably over $10,000 getting the car fully wrapped in PPF. And this, I think, is one of the best investments for your car because it'll protect your paint and it'll protect your resale value. If the frunk was enough storage for you to store all your DJI Phantoms, then you can also access the tonneau cover here when the top is up. So you press this button here, and the tonneau cover opens. And you can use this for storage. You can put umbrellas or maybe even miniature golf clubs here. After you've used the tonneau cover without using the roof, and you try to put the roof up, it'll have this indicator. Press OK to confirm tonneau is empty. And now you just press the OK stock in order to confirm. And you can put the top up. So now, when this car first came out, I thought the roof was super fast, but these days there are some cars with roofs that are a little bit faster than this one. I believe the operation time is like 17 seconds, which sounds fast, but when you're driving, it's forever to stay under 25 miles per hour. So these seat bolsters have also worn super well for 40,000 miles, and I think this is in part due to the McLaren Comfort Access system, where every time you get in and out of the car, it pushes the seat all the way back so that you don't rub on the seat bolsters when getting in and out. So people say that McLarens are difficult to get in and out of, but in my opinion, every time I get in and out of a McLaren, it just reaffirms that I have my youth. So the wear and tear actually isn't that bad. The interior is super clean. Supercars normally don't even get up to 20,000 miles. So 43,000 miles, that's a huge number. Some spots where you can see a little bit of wear and tear include this part on the steering wheel. I heard that Alcantara wears really badly, but in reality, this isn't bad at all. It's matted down a little bit, but better condition than I was led to expect. Another thing is this car was spec'd with matte carbon fiber, but where the hands have touched over the years, this part has become glossy looking. So this is exactly how glossy carbon fiber comes from the factory, and I enjoyed that it patinaed so well. Another part is here, the center console. This is a little bit loose, but I rarely use this at all, so this doesn't really bother me. Another thing is the sun visor is a little bit loose feeling. Like when the car's new, I'd imagine this feels a lot tighter, but now it just feels like the plastic inside has worn down and it just doesn't feel as tight as it does before. And finally, if you've ever seen any review about McLaren, you'll know how unintuitive these seat controls are. So having lived with the car for a while, I've gotten used to the controls, but I can second that it's unlike anything you've ever seen in the car industry. However, one button on my seat controls, it's a little bit flimsy and it only works about half the time. When starting up the car, all you have to do is put all your force into the brake and then press the engine start stop button. When I first got the car, I was putting a lot of force into it, but it still wasn't starting and I thought something was wrong. I went to my McLaren guy and he said, dude, you're just not putting enough force into the brakes. So for some background, I used to own a BMW i8 that I sold at the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic because I thought car prices were going to crash. Car prices crashed a little bit, but then they rebounded back in a big way. Once I saw this rebound, I figured it was time to get back into the game. So I was looking around for cars to buy, and a black Ferrari F430 caught my eye for just $90,000. This was a huge steal as it was listed below market price. At McLaren of San Francisco, where this car was listed, they kept on raising the price. First it was $95,000, then they raised it to $98,000, and then eventually it was over $100,000 before it sold, which was really interesting to me. They offered it to me for $90,000, and I was about to pull the trigger on this. already gathered all the money in my bank account and was prepared to tell my McLaren guy that I was going to buy it the next day. However, as I did a final scan of McLaren SF's, inventory, I saw that there was a McLaren 570S Spider listed at $135,000. I thought it was a mislisting because no other Spiders had been that cheap. There was a coupe that sold a couple days earlier that I had my eyes on that was $140,000, and that was a 2016. So I thought they mislisted this as a coupe or something. This is a 2018 McLaren 570S Spider. So there were no photos attached, and it was just listed like that night. I was browsing at 5 a.m. I was browsing the listings at 5 a.m. and I came across this car. I couldn't believe my eyes, so I messaged my McLaren guy first thing at 5 a.m. and I was like, dude, is this real? Is this a McLaren 570S Spider for only $135,000? He confirmed that it was true, and so I said, I want to buy this car right now. Keep in mind, there were no photos or anything, so I had no idea the exterior spec, the interior spec, because it was just all the default listing. So after I told him, he was like, dude, it's 5 a.m. man, can we talk about this, like, can we talk about this later and do the deal tomorrow? And I said, no dude, by tomorrow this car's gonna be gone for sure. So I said, can you meet me at the dealership today? And so it was 5 a.m. McLaren opens at 9 a.m. and he said, sure, okay, fine. Today's my day off, but I'll meet you at 10 a.m. So I met him at the dealership at 10 a.m. I gave the car a look over. I barely even looked into the windows just to see that everything was like drivable, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna buy this car. So I wrote him a check right there, and as I was taking the car out to go on my test drive, a dude pulls up in a Porsche 911 GT3, and he was like, damn, I missed this car by just like 2 hours. He had driven down from Oregon to go look at this car. So I don't know if you actually would have bought it, but it's definitely a super nice deal. So why is this car so cheap? This car is cheap because it's the highest mileage McLaren 570S that I've seen across the internet as well. This has 43,000 miles. But in my opinion, having high mileage just means it's well worn. You hear a lot of horror stories about McLaren having super high maintenance costs and reliability issues, but the fact that the previous owner put 40,000 miles on this car means that it's as reliable as a bullet. And this seconds my own opinion. I've been driving this car for around 4 months and I have not had a single issue. So you can put down the glass window. Being a Spider, you can put down the glass window in the back to hear the engine better. So we're pulling on the on-ramp right now, and we can... Yeah, I have the top up for noise purposes for you guys, but normally I always drive this car with the top down. It just makes the experience that much better. So kind of my first impressions of driving this car are that I used to have a BMW i8, right? So it actually didn't really matter what gear I was in. I could just, you know, put my foot down on the floor and it would automatically pick what gear to be in, and it could pull at any speed. But on this car, if you're in the wrong gear, it kind of feels like you're riding a bicycle. Like there's no power whatsoever. So you need to really be in auto, or you need to know what you're doing and be in the right gear. In the right gear, this thing pulls super hard, and there's a lot of turbo lag, but I think that's part of the charm of the vehicle. A lot of automotive enthusiasts and purists, they say that turbo lag is like the bane of all existence, but in reality, I feel like it's just something that they're not used to. I've had naturally aspirated cars, and they do have their own appeal, but this also has an appeal of its own. And I think that people growing up in this generation, they're not going to miss naturally aspirated cars. I think this is the new normal. Of course, we're moving towards electric cars, and I also have invested in that future as well. So one thing I really love about this car is the really dedicated and focused steering wheel. A lot of the other cars these days, they have a ton of buttons on the steering wheel and it's not as focused. This is nice and thin, it fits right in the palm of my hand. I keep my hands where they're supposed to be at 9 and 3, and the paddles follow my hands when I'm in a turn. Unlike Ferraris and Lamborghinis, which keep their paddles stationary, I think following the steering wheel is the way that things should be. I'm gonna put the window up for sound purposes, and as you can hear, there's much less noise in the cabin. With everything closed, the ride is actually very compliant, and you don't actually hear much of the engine noise. Even though for stock, it's actually really good. I actually recently had a collaboration with Sai. You can check out her video in the description below. But she has owned Ferraris and Lamborghinis in the past, and she's adamant that the paddles should be on the steering column. But to each their own, and this is something that we'll have to agree to disagree on. The paddles on this car are super nice. I don't get why traditional auto manufacturers like BMW, Mercedes, Audi, they can't invest in nicer feeling paddles. This is like the interface of you as a human with the car, right? You can just hear this click. And it's just nice to shift the paddles. If they invested in better haptics when you're operating the car, it just contributes to a much more premium feel. On the McLaren, the paddles are physically linked, meaning that you can downshift and upshift with both paddles. I really feel connected to the road. Basically, any slight movement I have is just instantly teleported into the front wheels, and I can feel every single bump and paint line in the road. Thanks for joining me today in this review of the cheapest and highest mileage McLaren 570S Spyder in the country. If you enjoyed this content or want to see any other videos about my life as a software engineer in Silicon Valley, or other McLaren content, please comment those down below and like and subscribe this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.